Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Environmental Sustainability Committee's Weatherization and Heat Pump Workshop. My name is Glenn Reed. I'm the former co-chair of the, I'll refer to it as the ESC, the Environmental Sustainability Committee, because that takes too long to say all the time. So the ESC is sponsoring this. Eric over there is current co-chair. We will have 3 speakers this evening, and we'll get into that in just a minute. So I'm going to do a brief introduction, and then we have three presentations today. All right, and wow. There you go.
Do whatever you that was in.
Oh, okay. There you go. Oh, thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Dan. I'm glad you're here.
Worth every penny we're paying you.
Yeah. So welcome and introductions. You did the welcome. We're talking about 3 main topics today: weatherization, heat pumps, and then interrelated to that are the various incentives and financing options that are available to assist you in lowering the cost to both install a heat pump and to do weatherization, as well as to operate a heat pump. And we'll also talk about the federal tax credits, and we'll typically use the term the expiring federal tax credits, because those tax credits, which had initially been planned to have been in effect through 2032, are now coming to an end this year, but we'll be talking more about that in a little bit. All right. So 3 speakers today: myself, Bob Zog, Dave Rocher. Between the 3 of us, we have probably 90 years plus, not probably, we do have 90 years plus in the energy efficiency and electrification area. So, you know, we kind of sort of know what we're talking about. That doesn't mean we know everything, but I'll say pretty darn close. Hybrid workshop. These comments are directed to those of you who are online. If you haven't, please mute yourself. Put all questions in a chat. There will be a question and answer component after the 3 presentations. However, after the first 2 presentations by Dave and Bob, we will take clarifying questions just to make certain if there's something that people were unclear about and they just needed a quick follow-up, we'll do that. But substantive questions should be held into the Q&A, and for those people who are online, please put your questions in the chat, and Eric will be monitoring those and feeding them to the speakers as appropriate, either as clarifying questions or, again, they may be pushed down into the larger Q&A discussion. All right. Give us a moment while we change the screen share, because we're going into and
Try my best. I'm a Mac user, but
see, oh, there we go. We see that in that. So if you go into, yeah.
I've changed the.
And
Where's the share button?
it's the green one. And yours there. There we go.
All right.
Thank you.
Progress. Thanks for coming in today. Thanks, Glenn. So I'll give a quick overview on weatherization, the importance of weatherization, what it is, and the value that it brings. We're talking about electrification of homes today, and this is the logical progression of how to electrify your home, reduce your carbon footprint, become more comfortable. Start with a mass save assessment. It's a no-cost assessment. Homeworks is here in the back of the room, very easy to sign up with them. There's other vendors as well, but Homeworks is here, easy to sign up. No cost for you. It takes about 1.5 hours, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, depending on the size of your home and how interested you are. And at the end of that, you're presented with a decarbonization plan, a roadmap that gives you clarity into the decisions that you will be faced with as you decarbonize your home. There's no obligation during the assessment, but you get the opportunity to learn, ask questions, and have a plan going forward. During that assessment, they'll scope out any weatherization work that you need. Weatherization work is air sealing and insulating your home. It's an absolute no-brainer in Massachusetts. We have hot summers, we have cold winters. Insulation works both times of the year, and there are serious incentives in Massachusetts to offset the cost of weatherizing your home. It's the baseline for all energy efficiency improvements. If you're thinking about heat pumps, if you're thinking about improving the efficiency of your home, the first thing you should do is weatherize. After you weatherize, and during the assessment, you learn about all the other measures that you can act on the goal is to turn everything into your home into electric appliances, electric heating, heat pump dryers, EVs, EV charging, lawn equipment, all of which are part of the Mass Save program. You'll learn about it during your home energy assessment or your decarbonization assessment, and you'll be informed on the incentives available. So that's the progression. And you get renewable energy, so that then you have no carbon when you're heating and cooling with electricity. Next slide. Page up. Yeah. So what is weatherization? There's a thing called stack effect. In the winter, when it's cold outside, air is drawn in at the bottom of your home, and that air is then warmed up, and as it warms, it rises, and your home doesn't explode at the top, but you get increased pressure at the top, decreased pressure at the bottom, and the air is forced out of your windows, out of your doors, out of your top plates, up through your attic. And so weatherization is the sealing of those gaps at the bottom and the sealing of the gaps at the top. You can see here, this is a piece of fiberglass that was laid in the attic, and all that black is filtered air, is that filtered dirt, as air has been passing through that fiberglass year after year after year after year. And so what you want to do is seal the cracks, the gaps in your attic plane, so that you reduce that air movement. If you take a cup or a can, open can, and you put it in water, does it fill with water? It doesn't, because there's no air movement out of the top, so there's no place for that water to go. And air in a home works the same way. If you seal off the top, then there's no place for the air to go, so air doesn't come in on the bottom. Makes you more comfortable, makes you more efficient. When you wear a sweater, that helps keep you warm, but when it's windy out, all that stored heat gets robbed from your body. So you really need to have a sweater and a windbreaker. And then you're well insulated and you're well weatherized. So that's what we're doing here, is we're air sealing, which is the windbreaker, and we're insulating, which is the sweater. And you need both of those together to be comfortable and reduce your air leakage. So just a visualization of what weatherization is in the Mass Save program. This is what your attic looks like, most attics, when you peel back the insulation. And so the crews will get up in the attic. It's a tough gig. You probably don't want to do it yourself. It's hot in the summer, it's cold in the winter, it's dirty. They'll peel back the insulation. They'll air seal all of the top plates, which is where your walls meet your ceiling, where there are gaps that you don't really know exist there. They'll seal up all those, and then they'll blow insulation over the entire attic. It makes it look like just snowed in your attic, where everything is covered with a nice, even blanket of insulation. The insulation that we use in the Mass Save program is recycled, ground up newspaper. So it's a low carbon, it's a carbon sink actually. It's inert, there's no poisonous chemicals, it's treated with borate, which is a naturally occurring mineral that is fire retardant and pest resistant. We can blow it into walls on the outside of your house. So if your home was built after the 80s-ish or so, There's insulation in your walls already, 70s, 60s, questionable, 50s a tiny bit. Before that, probably nothing. And so you can pull off siding, drill a hole through the sheathing, fill that cavity with cellulose. Nothing gets into your, a tiny bit of cellulose dust gets in your house, but not much. And then you put the siding back, and it looks like nothing has happened after you touch up the paint. It's a little tiny bit invasive because you are pulling off siding just to set expectations, but in the end, you have a much tighter, much more comfortable home. There's also rigid foam board insulation. Most parts of your home, there's a solution for in the Mass Save program to improve the comfort and to improve the efficiency. So why do you want to weatherize as the first part of your electrification journey? Because it improves your comfort and it allows for your heat pumps to perform much better. It'll be a much more stable, comfortable, consistent temperature after you weatherize. It allows you to right size the heat pumps. It's really important with heat pumps to have things sized correctly, and the amount of heat you need to pump into your home is less after you've insulated. So you want to insulate so that you can size your equipment correctly. That will reduce the operating cost and reduce the install cost because you'll have a smaller size system, the correct size system. You'll pay less to operate your system after you've insulated because you'll use less heat, or you'll generate less heat, or move less heat. And in order to qualify for the incentives in the Mass Save program, you must have an insulated home first. Or to qualify for the whole home incentive, the most money, you need to insulate your home first. It reduces the strain on the grid, and it just lowers your overall carbon footprint. And there's some serious money available in Massachusetts to ease the burden of adopting this equipment. So air sealing, which is the sealing of all those cracks in your home, is no cost. Zero reasons not to sign up for that. It's no cost. It reduces the air leakage in your home, makes you more comfortable. Insulation, depending on your income, is somewhere between 75% off and 100% off. We don't use the word free, but 100% off is free. It's no cost. And so there's tremendous incentive, the best in the country, for insulation. Barrier mitigation, which is like if you have knob and tube wiring or some mold or some moisture, there's incentives to help you cover that. And then if you qualify based on your income, insulation is free, no cost. Barrier mitigation is no cost. And if you don't heat with gas, if you heat with oil or propane, you can get a no-cost heat pump system, which is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity that's new in Massachusetts this year, basically. And it's in the plan for the next 3 years. You can see the income levels over here. So it depends on, I assume most people live in Carlisle. This is the Carlisle income range. If you live in Worcester, it's different. If you live in Dover, it's different. But if you have a household of 2 and you bring in, it's not asset-based, it's just income-based. If you bring in less than $105,000 or $106,000 annually, then you qualify as moderate income. If you're less than, that's the 80, if you qualify for great incentives if you're less than those numbers there, based on the number of occupants in your household.
So for heat pumps, it's 100% if your income is below the first number?
Yeah, so if you are a single resident living in a home and you earn less than $92,650, and you don't heat with gas currently, then you can qualify. Likely there's some other nuance maybe depending on different situations, but you likely qualify for a no-cost heat pump.
And then if your income's over that, there's no rebate for heat pumps, or there's still?
There's still a $10,000 whole home rebate. We'll get into the details of, Act Now is sort of the punchline on a lot of this because incentives are dwindling, not dwindling, but they're being reduced. That's weatherization in a very quick snippet. Makes you more comfortable, reduces your carbon footprint, allows your equipment to perform better, and is heavily subsidized in the Mass Save program. The Mass Save program for the last 30 years has insulated hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of homes across the state. It's money that we all pay. If you're a Carlisle resident and you pay a utility bill, we're paying into this fund already. All of our money, not all of our money, all of us contribute money to this Mass Save Fund. And so you paid into this benefit already, and it's a good idea to take advantage of it. That's weatherization. I'll be back for answering questions. That's my spiel. Who's up next? Bob?
Bob is.
Where are you? That one?
That doesn't look right. Can't see the screen very well.
That's the flyer.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. This is my advance button there.
Yeah, or the page up, page down.
Page up. Great. Hi, everybody. Shifting
Hi.
gears to heat pumps. First, I want to introduce the organization I represent. I am a Carlisle resident, but I'm also one of the co-founders of an organization called the Heat Smart Alliance. Our mission in life is to promote heat pumps in Massachusetts homes. And we consider applications of home heating and cooling as well as water heating. We're an all-volunteer organization. We have 145 plus members in over 55 communities in Massachusetts. And we educate, coach, and collaborate. We educate through events like this, through our website. We provide one-on-one coaching to folks who would like to evaluate heat pumps in their homes. And we work with other organizations to try to make things happen a little faster. And just to keep ourselves neutral, we do not accept any money, any donations, any referral fees from manufacturers or installers. So that's us. So why consider heat pumps for your home? Let's first take a look at how we're using energy in Massachusetts. This pie chart on the left is showing how we use energy in Massachusetts, and you can see that 29%, almost 30% is for our homes, and that does not include our vehicles. If we break down that 30%, 54% is for home heating, 5% for home cooling, 18% for water heating, about 2% for clothes drying, and those are all loads that we can supply with heat pumps. So about 80% of the energy you use in your home, those loads could be provided with heat pumps. So it's a big deal. Dave already went through this, so I'm just going to flip through quickly the 3 basic steps. You weatherize, you electrify with high efficiency electric equipment like heat pumps, and then you make sure you procure your electricity from 100% renewable sources. You can put solar panels on your roof, where everyone here in Carlisle has easy access to 100% renewable electricity through our Community Choice Aggregation Program. You do have to opt into this 100% choice. It is not the default offering. So check what your supplier is on your bill and check to make sure you're getting the 100% product. If you have any questions, on our town website we have a link to our Colonial Power Group, which is our broker and partner in supplying our electricity here. So it's really simple. Click of a button, you can be 100% renewable. Okay, so what is a heat pump? We all know that heat naturally flows from warm places to cool places. But if we wanted to move from a cooler place to a warmer place, we have to use a mechanical device. We have to add energy to do that. And that's what a heat pump is. And we all have heat pumps in our homes, although we don't call them heat pumps. Our refrigerators, our dehumidifiers, our air conditioners are all using the same basic technology of a heat pump. Okay, so it's not really new. They're available for water heating. They're available for, I should say, home heating and cooling. So that's one piece of equipment that heats your home and cools your home. Not 2 separate pieces, one piece. They're available for water heating. They're also available for pool heating, clothes drying. We won't talk about those 2 today. This simple illustration shows how a heat pump can be more than 100% efficient. In this example, we're taking 1 unit of electricity. We're using that electricity to pump 2 additional units of energy from the outdoor air into your home. That brings in a total of 3 units of energy when we only put in 1 unit of electricity. That's an efficiency of 300%. And some heat pumps will do even better than that. And just to reinforce it, one piece of equipment provides both heating and air conditioning. So let's go through some of the benefits. The big one, substantial reductions in carbon pollution. We'll talk about this a bit more in a second. It's safer. There's no risk of carbon monoxide poisoning or explosions. They're quieter than most air conditioners. And the comfort is really difficult to appreciate unless you've experienced it. Most of your current equipment operates an on-off cycle. It's either on or it's off. That results in temperature swings, and things shut off, and then they go back on full blast. Modern heat pumps are designed to put out variable capacity. In other words, they put out just enough cool air or just enough warm air to keep you comfortable at whatever you set your thermostat at. So very little fluctuation. Okay, this chart shows an example home, not your home, but a big home, 3,500 square feet. It's typical in Carlisle. It shows our carbon pollution for a typical heating season for various types of heating fuels and systems. Okay? As you can see, air source and ground source heat pumps, we'll talk a bit more about the types in a minute, but they clearly show much lower carbon pollution levels. Now here's the magic of 100% renewable electricity. If you're using 100% renewable electricity, those emissions for heat pumps go virtually to 0. So that's where you really get the savings. So let's talk about what type of heat pump might be right for your home. First, let's look at how you're currently heating your home and what type of distribution system you have for it. I'll talk about the 2 basic types. There's other variations, combinations of these 2, but most people either have a hydronic system or forced air system. If you have a hydronic system, you'll typically have a boiler in the basement. You'll have hydronic baseboards throughout your house. If you have an older home, you could have a steam boiler with steam radiators in your home. And some of you might even have radiant floor heating, which is a form of hydronic heating. Forced air, on the other hand, you have ductwork in your home, and you have supply and return ducts. The return ducts bring air typically down to an air handling unit in your basement that has a furnace. It may have the indoor piece of an air conditioner on top of it. That heats or cools the air, and then supply ductwork brings that back into your home. And you'll have these supply and return vents either in the floors or in your walls. And again, some people might have a combination of this as well. If you have hydronic system right now, most people opt, when they look at heat pumps, will opt for a mini-split heat pump, mini-split air source heat pump. This will have an outdoor unit that sits outside your home. They'll typically have a wall-mounted indoor unit. These 2 units are both part of the system. They are connected by 2 copper pipes, 2 copper tubes. No ductwork required. Another variation on this is a multi-split system. This has a single outdoor unit connected to a multitude of indoor units. For either of these configurations, those indoor units can be wall-mounted, they can be ceiling recessed, they can be floor-mounted, they can even be horizontally ducted so they condition 2 adjacent rooms. And you can keep your existing heating system as a backup. If, on the other hand, you've got forced air, most people opt for a central ducted heat pump. You'll see the outdoor unit here looks a lot like a central air conditioning outdoor unit. The only difference is it's put on a pedestal to keep it out of the snow and ice. Now I'll show 2 different configurations for the indoor unit, which might be in your basement, it could be in your attic, depending on how your home's set up. What I'm showing here is what we call a hybrid system. It has a conventional furnace in it that burns fossil fuel. It also has the coil for the heat pump mounted on top of it, so you can use either the furnace or the heat pump to heat your home. The other option is to go all electric. Have a very similar looking unit. The only difference is this time, instead of the furnace, you might have backup resistance coils inside the unit to provide supplemental heat. Those are not required. Depending on how you would like to configure your system, you could go without the backup heat altogether and just use the heat pump to heat and cool your home. Now for the ultimate energy efficiency, we've got the ground source heat pump, sometimes called geothermal. This actually extracts heat from the ground or rejects heat in the summertime to the ground. And because the ground temperature is uniform year-round, it's the easiest way to pump heat in either direction, results in much higher efficiencies. Indoors, it looks a lot like an air source heat pump, but typically on an indoor unit, the heat pump is completely packaged in that box in your basement. An important caveat with these two types of heat pumps: your ductwork needs to be suitable for a heat pump, it needs to be sized properly, and it should be well insulated and air sealed. An HVAC contractor can look at your ductwork and determine whether it's suitable for a heat pump or can be made suitable for a heat pump. If not, if it can't be made suitable for a heat pump, no worries, you're still a candidate for the ductless mini-split or multi-split that we just talked about. Let's talk just a bit more about comparing air source and ground source. Some of the advantages of the ground source: there's better incentives available for ground source heat pumps, much better energy efficiency, even compared to the efficient air source heat pump. It's another 50 to 70% more efficient, so lower energy costs, lower carbon pollution. Better aesthetics outside. There is no mechanical equipment above grade outdoors once the system's installed. Okay, so no boxes of stuff to look at. And the refrigeration system is packaged, typically packaged at the factory. There's no need to make refrigerant line joints in the field. That means better reliability. Air source heat pumps, on the other hand, are less expensive. They don't require any disturbance of the landscaping to install. When you put in a ground source heat pump, you do have to understand you will have a well drilling rig coming in to make boreholes. You will have trenching equipment and trenches dug. It will disrupt your landscaping. That's all fixable, but you have a temporary situation. And you need space for all that equipment to come in. So if you have a very small lot, that doesn't really apply to many in Carlisle, but if you did, it makes it a little trickier. And the other drawback is, or the other advantage I should say, is that the air source heat pump gives you more options, especially the ductless systems we talked about. While it can be done, it is difficult to mate a ground source heat pump with a home that does not have ductwork. So you really, in most cases, you do need to have ductwork or need to retrofit it to your home. Okay, let's not forget about our water heating. Heat pump water heaters, also called hybrid water heaters, are available. As you can see from these photos, they basically look like a tank-type water heater, except they have this funny box on top, and that box holds the heat pump. And that will extract heat from the surrounding air. If your water heater's in a basement, it'll draw heat out of your basement and pump that heat into your water stored in the water tank. You'll get about over 60% efficiency improvement, fast payback compared to conventional electric, and either a plumber or an HVAC installer can put one of these in. Not all of them, but many of them. Now this is brand new in the Mass Save program. There's something called the Heat Pump Water Heater Marketplace, just introduced this week, I think, and last week. What it does is it allows you to go online, and if you have a straightforward installation, you can get a quote right then. If your situation is a little more complicated, you may need to enter some additional information. Perhaps someone needs to visit your home to take a closer look. but it's just making it a way more convenient to find someone to put in a heat pump water heater, get a price, and get the job done without any fuss. So we're very hopeful this will help. So what will it cost? We'll talk a little bit about energy costs here. This is a chart showing the same 3,500 square foot home we looked at for carbon pollution, but now we're looking at the actual costs for a typical heating system, a heating season to heat your home with these different types of fuels and equipment. Now, as you can see here, an air source heat pump is about the same cost as heating with gas, based on a new discount rate that heat pump owners are eligible for after November 1, that Glenn will talk about more in a second. That's made a big difference. That's brought that cost down. Before it was more expensive to use an air source heat pump than natural gas. So now we've at least gotten on even ground. And I should point out, these fossil fuel prices are last year's fossil fuel prices. They don't have projections yet for this winter, but what I'm hearing is prices are going up for fossil fuels. So these numbers, heat pumps will look even better, I think, once we have projections for this winter. But the electric prices are for this year, and these are based on the standard product offering in Carlisle's Community Choice Aggregation Program. So, hang on a second. I hit the wrong button. I have to back up. Okay, forgive me there. Okay. Another important caveat, energy costs will vary over the life of your equipment. Try not to put too much emphasis on this comparison. It's just an uncertainty. Costs will go up and down. If you like to do spreadsheets and all this financial analysis, I know I love to, a couple of guidelines. First, make sure when you're looking at the first costs that you're looking at the difference between replacing your conventional equipment and the cost of the heat pump, because you're going to have to replace that conventional equipment anyway. And make sure you're also looking at the cost of both your heating system and your cooling system, because again, the heat pump does the job of both. Don't forget about the incentives, the rebates, the tax credits that are going away soon, and the reduced electricity rates. And this depends on your value system a bit, but you might want to assign some value to your carbon pollution and say, hey, it's worth something to me to reduce it. There are studies that show that home resale values go up with heat pumps. That's another consideration. And definitely keep in mind the comfort benefits of heat pumps. And again, accept the uncertainties of future energy costs. We just don't know. So what's your action plan look like? Look at the age of your current heating and cooling equipment. If your equipment is more than 10, 15 years old, I'll say 15 years old, boilers may be a little longer, 20 years, it's starting to get towards the end of its useful life. For water heaters, it's less, 7 to 10 years. My most important message tonight is please do not wait for your current equipment to fail. If you do, you will be in an emergency replacement situation, and you may not have time, you probably will not have time to evaluate heat pumps. In desperation, you may install conventional equipment, lock yourselves into fossil fuels for another 15 or 20 years. I know we all like to get that last mile out of everything, but keep this in mind. Certainly, if you don't have air conditioning and you'd like to add it to your home, it's a great opportunity to put in heat pumps. That's really a sweet opportunity. If you're planning an addition or renovation, or certainly if you're building a new home, it's a really easy argument to make to go with a heat pump. You can easily supply 100% of your heating and cooling needs. Okay, hopefully we'll be able to distribute these presentations. I have a few links that will can help you out. Here's a couple of sources. The Heat Smart Alliance, heatsmartalliance.org, has a lot of information. That's our organization. Also, the ESC has a lot of good information. As Dave mentioned, get your no-cost Mass Save Home Energy Assessment. If you haven't had one in a couple of years, even if you've already had one, if it's been a few years, sign up again and get another one. Again, as Dave mentioned, it is a prerequisite for some of the incentives that you can get through the Mass Save program. And it just makes good sense to make sure your home's as energy efficient as it can be. And then request coaching services. You can go to the Mass Save website and you can request a decarbonization consultation. And you can sign up to talk to an expert to walk you through heat pumps and decarbonization in general. You can even request a quote comparison, and the consultant has the discretion to give you that, and you can provide them with some number of quotes you've gotten on heat pumps and have them evaluate them. They do a great job. Also, you can put in a request through the Heat Smart Alliance on our website. You'll probably get me if you live in Carlisle. I'll come visit your home, have you fill out some questionnaire, come visit your home, talk to you, and help you through the process of evaluating heat pumps for your own home. Both options, you can do one, the other, you can do both, up to you.
Both are no cost.
Both are no cost. When it's time to get quotes, we think it makes sense to get multiple quotes. You'll hear and learn different things from different installers. One installer may have some ideas that appeal to you more than another. But when it comes down to making a decision, this is not a commodity purchase. This is your home. This is your comfort. This is your carbon footprint. Be sure to look at the quality of the equipment you're getting, the reputation of the installer, in addition to looking at the first costs. So that's it for me today. And Glenn, I guess you're up next. And we'll have Q&A in a little bit here. Thank you.
Bob, thank you. And so Bob talked a bit about the cost of putting heat pumps in and considerations in terms of timing and replacing existing systems and making sure you keep a lot of things in mind. But we also talked, particularly in the weatherization area, about incentives from Mass Save. And there are other financial incentives available, as well as financing options to make weatherization and heat pump installations more affordable. So we're going to talk about 5 of these. Try to do it fairly quickly. There's a fair amount of numbers. These presentations will be available. We'll also give you some resources at the end in terms of links that you can click on. And again, if you go through a decarbonization consultation, a home energy assessment, a Heat Smart Alliance coaching, those people will help you make more sense of this. But I just want to put these out there so you understand there are monies in Massachusetts for heat pumps and weatherization. Every year there are hundreds of millions of dollars available for incentives to the residential sector. All right, so we're going to talk about Mass Save incentives. We're going to talk about the zero interest heat loan, also available through Mass Save. We're going to talk about the Energy Saver Home Loan Program. And we're going to talk about the expiring Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA tax credits. I'll just refer to them as the tax credits. And earlier was mentioned that there are some timing considerations because both the Mass Save incentives for certain products, air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps specifically, will be declining going into next year. The IRA tax credits are going away this year. Heat loan, still be there. There may be some tweaks. We'll talk about that. Energy Saver Home Loan Program, as far as I know, will be continuing into next year. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Eversource heat pump rate, which is a big deal. All right. Not going to talk too much about the weatherization incentives because I think Dave covered it pretty well. It's pretty straightforward. Air sealing is free. Installation is either 75% off to 100% off. So the weatherization costs typically are, I'll use the word fairly small, with the one exception being if you have serious issues in terms of pre-weatherization barriers like mold and mildew or asbestos or vermiculite. Those can get expensive to address. Those costs are only partially covered in the Mass Save program for non-income eligible customers. Getting into heat pumps. So we have two different air source heat pump, ASHP, air source heat pump incentives. Partial displacement, where you're retaining your existing fossil fuel heating system or resistance heat to work together with the heat pump, versus a whole house heat pump where you have to either remove or disconnect your existing heating system. The incentives are higher for the whole house. As Bob and Dave mentioned, you also have to do any recommended weatherization measures from a home energy assessment to get the higher whole house incentives. And you can see in 2025, going into 2026, the incentives will fall both in terms of dollars per ton as well as the cap. So we're using the term tons. I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with the word ton. Ton is a measure of primarily of cooling capacity, but it's also used for heating capacity too. It's 12,000 BTUs. It has to do with the fact that a long, long time ago, buildings were cooled by large chunks of ice, and a ton of ice would melt over 24 hours if about 12,000 BTUs of heat were, if that block of ice was subjected to that amount of heat. So it's a little bit of a legacy issue from days gone by, but it continues to be the basis of how we refer to our heating and cooling equipment in terms, particularly cooling equipment in terms of tons. Right. Ground source heat pumps, bigger incentives, also declining, more expensive systems, as Bob mentioned. Heat pump water heaters, most heat pump water heaters are 240 volt. They're starting to make, I'll use the term plug-in 120 volt heat pump water heaters. There are not as many models available. They tend to be slightly lower efficiency, but for some applications where you just are going to incur a lot of costs in terms of wiring, they are increasingly being considered as an option, but again, less common. And I will also know, as far as I know, those 120 volt heat pump water heaters are not available through the heat pump water heater marketplace that Bob had mentioned earlier. And then finally, there's yet another type of fairly obscure heat pump water heater called a split system. Those have higher incentive. They're not a single unit. They have an outdoor component, kind of like a heating heat pump. So it's a more complex and more costly piece of equipment. All right. I will note two little important footnotes there. If you do partial displacement, you can get two $500 bonuses. One if you do all the weatherization recommendations, and the other one, even if you don't disconnect your existing heating system, but if you size your heat pump to meet your entire heating load, you can get a $500 bonus. You can still retain your existing fossil fuel system, but if you size it for that full load for the building, you can get an incentive. The hope being is that, when my boiler or when my furnace actually fails, I'm not going to replace it. I'm just going to use my heat pump. All right. We talked a little bit about free heat pumps and free weatherization. That's a link there for finding out more about income eligible programs. And actually, if you take the first step in terms of getting a home energy assessment through the Mass Save website, the first thing that pops up in the screen is a little dialog box asking you how many people in your home and what your income is, and then depending upon how you answer, you may be redirected into income eligible or enhanced incentive pages where you can get higher incentives or free equipment that we talked about. Heat loan. Even with all these incentives, putting in a heat pump can be fairly expensive, particularly if you put in a whole house heat pump, put in a heat pump water heater, remove your oil tank, remove your oil boiler, which is exactly what I did 6 months ago. And having Mass Save give me a $25,000 zero interest loan was not a bad thing. It certainly made it a lot less painful being able to pay most of the cost of my renovations and installations, with that loan, after taking into account, the $10,000 that I got for the incentive. So a 7-year loan at $25,000 is $298 a month. It's not it's something, but it's not that painful. Starting in 2026, there are discussions that the loan period may be tied to income, and I'll also note, even currently, some lenders, not all of them in all cases, will offer a 7-year loan for the $25,000, but I'll note that through Middlesex Bank, I did get one. Again, a link for the zero interest heat loan. It's really a good deal. All right. Another state program separate from the Mass Save programs, though you can layer the two together. You can get a heat loan, and you can also get a loan through the Massachusetts Community Climate Bank. There are some requirements in terms of overall savings, and we're not going to get into how they calculate that 20% savings. So this isn't just something for doing minor measures in your home. Loans go from $10,000 to $100,000, but they also cover a much broader range of measures, not only your typical weatherization measures, heat pump water heaters. You can put in rooftop solar, you can put in battery storage, you can even, I believe, finance the cost of a new roof if that's necessary before you put rooftop solar. It's treated as a second home mortgage. It's a 20-year loan term. Interest rates are not zero, depending upon your income, and the income varies by county. This is for us folks in Middlesex County. It is, however, not dependent on household size like the Mass Save incentives are. So this is just for household. So at 0.5%, it's a little shy of $122,000, and for the 2%, it's a little over $205,000. So that's again, if you want to do a bigger project beyond just your heat pumps, and you have more things you want to finance. And right now, there's really not a lot available anymore in Massachusetts to support rooftop solar. So this is one potential option, and it's a possible alternative to doing a lease type arrangement.
If you earn over 205, you're not eligible for this program.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, these are caps. Right. Expiring tax credits. They were supposed to go to 2032. Congress, the current administration, basically axed the vast majority of them by the end of this year. My understanding is whatever you want to do not only has to be paid for, but also installed by this cutoff date. In most cases, there's some details there. These aren't all fully additive. There's a cap of $3,200 per year, and since this is the last year, it's basically there's a cap of $3,200. So even though you can get, if you were doing a heat pump this year and a heat pump water heater next year, you could have gotten $2,000 for both, but now you can only get a combined $3,200 cap, and that includes all the other measures. You can get money for panel upgrades, but again, even though there's a lot of numbers there, if you started adding them all up, you get into several thousands of dollars. It's capped at $3,200. Right. And the one separate from that, in and of itself, if you do a ground source heat pump, which is Bob noted, is a more expensive but also considerably more efficient option for heat pumps. There is currently, and again, I believe to the end of the year, a 30% tax credit with no cap. So that's a little different ball of wax. Again, you have to be prepared for more significant capital costs, but you have higher mass save incentives and you have this tax credit. Heat pump rate. The Department of Public Utilities, responding to recommendations from others, required all 3 investor-owned utilities in the state to develop, submit heat pump rates. Eversource was the last to do so and have theirs approved. Theirs will go in effect November 1st. It is a 6-month rate. It goes from November 1st through April 30th. In order to be eligible, you have to have a heat pump in your house. It does not have to heat your entire home. If you have just a heat pump water heater, that does not qualify. It has to be a heat pump. And again, it doesn't have to be a whole house. Partial displacement is just fine. The nice thing, particularly if anybody has an electric vehicle, plug-in hybrid, this rate applies to all electricity use in the house during that 6 months. And it's a almost 7.5-cent reduction per kilowatt hour. And savings are going to be in the vicinity of about 25%. So this is a pretty significant reduction, and as Bob showed, it helps move the needle. Before this change, the economics of heat pumps and fuel oil, were depending on what you assumed, a little bit on par. It's moved the needle much more in favor of heat pumps, and now heat pumps are pretty much on par with natural gas, which was really not the case before this reduction. The utilities are going to have to file new rates for next year, so it's possible there may be changes in this rate at the first of the year. From what little I've heard, there might even be further reductions, in other words, further savings, further reductions in the rate, greater savings in terms of your electricity costs. All right. So it's interesting how few people know about this because it hasn't really been publicized. If you received a heat pump incentive from Mass Save in 2019 or after, you will be automatically enrolled, or at least that's what Eversource and all the other utilities are saying, and let's hope that's the case. I certainly hope that's the case. For people who have a heat pump that either did not go through the program or that received an incentive before 2019, there will be a place to enroll on the Eversource website, on or before November 1st. That's the link for Eversource's heat pump rate website. And try to condense some of these into a single page. So to sign up for a Mass Save Home Energy Assessment, there's a link. For the more description about the weatherization services and incentive. If you want a decarbonization consultation, where to sign up, heat pump incentives, Heat Smart Alliance, and also HomeWorks Energy. HomeWorks Energy is a Mass Save contractor who happens to be in back here, who Carlisle has a special relationship with. And if anybody wants to talk to the gentleman back when we're done and consider signing up for home energy assessment, you have that option. I guess we're at the Q&A part now. So are there questions? Start with the gentleman in back.
So the only question I have is that what you just talked about, I just did in my house, and it works great. I went from a steam system of gas in an old brick building from 1910, did all that, did the Mass Save Energy, I actually got a $50,000 interest-free loan.
So you did last year.
I did it last year,
Yeah.
so it's working great. I'm now doing it for my cousin's house now, so that's why we're here.
Yep. Nice.
But the question I had for you is, with my electric bill, I have Eversource.
Yep.
But I use Clearview as my provider. Does that do you still get the discount rate?
That's a very good question. So your provider, and Bob will correct me here if I'm wrong, that's the generation component. This is the supply, it's the transmission and distribution component. So yes, you will get it. They're basically, depending how you divide your bill up, there are 2 or 3 components to it. There's a generation component, and that's where a third-party supplier,
Yes.
and actually almost everybody in Carlisle has power provided by a third-party supplier, because we have community choice aggregation
Okay.
here.
So does the 23%
Yep.
still cover for it?
Yeah, because it has nothing to do with the generation component. It's the supply, it's the transmission distribution component that this 7.5 cents comes off of. So it's entirely unrelated to your
Okay, so it's the
supply.
transmission part where we get the discount.
Yeah,
right?
distribution,
The
transmission.
distribution.
It's about a 50%-ish reduction.
Oh, okay.
Your bill is about 50% transmission,
Right.
50% distribution.
Yeah.
It's a 50% reduction on the distribution, so that the math comes out to 25-ish%.
Right.
All right, so that's very good to hear.
Yep, exactly. And I will also note, for those people, who are on the low income rate, that gets layered on top of this, so they benefit even further. I believe in Massachusetts, for a low income rate, you get like a 42% reduction across the board on all components of your electric bill. This still applies, so that 42% then is applied to even the lower costs.
And it looks like that now with the 100% no cost, your income, this year's income has actually gone up significantly. Because I did apply for it and I didn't qualify. Now I would.
Every October, it gets adjusted.
This was a big jump from last year.
Yep.
All right. Sir?
Yeah, can you point me to some place that I can gather some heat pump, kind of like repair, service, failure information? That seems to be very, very tightly held.
You're looking for a contractor to repair a heat pump?
No, I'm talking about the
reliability.
average, or the install base that you
Reliability,
experience.
information on the reliability of heat pumps.
Okay, because I lived through decades of this so-called advancement, improvement, just like the gas heater have gone from 70, 75% up to 90+%. Unfortunately, the failure rate shoot up like crazy. Okay, so practically they couldn't even fix it. They couldn't have this replacement that really be able to make it. Now they stabilized after something like over 10 years. Before these 90% gas, and that's not going into the oil 90%. 90% oil is still a joke. So I'm kind of really leery about it. Like you buy a LG new refrigerator. 2 months later, hundreds of dollars just for the little circuit board. Okay, and this is the thing that I really am worried about. I'd rather pay more money in the operating cost than to facing this kind of thing. And then on top of that, I have a friend that have problem with the new system, which is not it's a German one. I don't want to name the name. It takes a month sitting there and wait for replacement parts. And this is going to be happening to all the new stuff. I knew that. Now we got one little lousy capacitor that worth 2 cents. Screw up the system for about 3 months. So any way I can find that information, I don't expect to get it from you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Anybody collect this kind of statistic?
I've been looking for this data for years.
So I hate to pitch
I
something,
don't know where you.
but I hate to pitch something like this without getting
Right.
this
So-
information.
So
But hang on though, the problem is, you have no option. I mean, this is the way we do things today.
Yeah, I do have option. I don't have that much long to live. Okay. I have an option. I can still put back $3 something a gallon, you know, and then pay them for to clean the system once a year. And that's my option.
So, yeah, I'm not sure that there's a collective database of heat pump failures.
But soon all these so-called
But-
alliance and government willing to push money into this incentive
There
without
are,
providing this kind of information for me?
well, there are hundreds of thousands of heat pumps installed in Massachusetts, and
But they have the same,
Right.
but similarly, they have the same statistic for oil boiler. They have the same statistic for gas boiler. I'm aware of that.
yeah,
Okay?
and so, I mean, it's all anecdotal information, and of course, some fail, but the general reliability of the systems is, from an anecdotal basis, mine works fine.
Oh, yeah, you're fine, I know,
And,
I do.
the hundreds of customers that we talk to,
Okay,
so,
I'm not getting a no.
So one thing I want to, so I'm not familiar to your question, which is a good one, about reliability statistics and failure rates, but
That's
the,
scary to me.
but the utilities, the utilities do satisfaction surveys, which I understand is a somewhat different thing. And generally the satisfaction rate with heat pumps has been quite high, including important questions like, does it keep me warm on the coldest day? You know, because to me, that's kind of the scariest question to ask. Because,
As long as they're working, it's not scary. What's scary is not working.
point taken. But again, you know, with the information that I've seen in terms of survey results from the utilities, you know, they do have fairly high satisfaction rates. Again, not quite the same question that you're asking, but at least I wanted to share that.
Eric.
But related to his question, how long can you expect the heat pump to keep working? When we replaced our oil burner, the propane burner, like 2 years ago, because we wanted to keep the steam radiators upstairs, because it's a nice heat, and comes on quick, we don't keep the upstairs that warm all day anyway. And the Wow McLean was installed in 1975, and it was still running fine. So are these heat pumps rated to last 20 years, 30 years, 15 years? What generally do you think? What do you
It's
see?
more comparable to an air conditioner than to a furnace or boiler. So 15 years is, I think, a reasonable expectation. If it's a ground source heat pump, quite a bit longer.
And furnaces and boilers don't last as long as they used to. If you get a new furnace
Yeah.
today.
To your point.
Right.
No, the thing is,
Eric, go for it.
So there's some dialogue that is going back and forth specifically about the enrollment. I'm going to, Cindy and Rich Kane have some comments. Cindy, if you can unmute.
Hi, I'm really interested in understanding what Eversource is going to be requiring for proof of heat pump, heating by heat pump. I haven't.
I'm happy to.
I believe we used Mass Save rebates for the mini splits that we have. I haven't heard anything from Eversource.
So I talked to.
They're not going to put a form up until November 1st, according to their website.
So
I'm
Cindy.
feeling a little frustration. At least they could tell us what we need to give them so we can have it ready.
So I talked to Eversource today about this, and they will start enrollment next week. The proof, so again, if you're after 2019, you should get automatically enrolled. An email from, if Eversource has your email address on file, an email should come before midnight today, giving you information on, Cindy, do you mind muting? Thanks. You should get an email today from Eversource about the details. If you installed before 2019, things like a picture of your outdoor unit, your model number, a contractor invoice, a picture of your serial number, a picture of your indoor units combined. There'll be a list of options, all pretty easily accessible for homeowners. And you can pick one, or the more you pick, the easier it will be for whoever happens to be my team, verifying the evidence that you submitted. that you do have a heat pump. But you will get enrolled by Eversource, and then we'll verify your equipment. So it's a relatively low bar for proof. You just need some pictures and some evidence. There'll be a list of items, so you shouldn't be intimidated by the process. It will be pretty streamlined. There'll be a portal on the Eversource website where you upload a few documents or numbers and hit submit, and you'll be auto enrolled within a week.
And Rich Kane added a number of comments into the meeting chat. Rich, I'm not sure if you want to expound on them yourself or add on to whatever was just said already.
This sounds like they've covered the criteria that Eversource will be looking for to validate people's eligibility. But coincidentally, I was notified by Eversource by email just this afternoon that I've been auto-enrolled in the new heat pump rate. I didn't have to submit a request or any documentation, but I did get a Mass Save rebate after the January 2019 threshold.
Yeah, and whoever said that they called Mass Save and the database only goes back a couple of years, that's you, Cindy. There's been lots of evolutions of who runs what part of the different programs in Mass Save. So that is relatively accurate, but they do have rebate data back to 19. And their call centers aren't yet trained on this. So it's not November 1st yet, just to remind people. Go for it.
We installed what appears to be a hybrid, I guess, because it's still got a gas component and this summer, and we've only so far used it for air conditioning, except last week when it was 40 degrees below outdoors. We were told when it goes to 30 below, it'll become a gas furnace in the old-fashioned way, but above 30, 32, it'll be a heat pump. So the day that it was 40 degrees, we were hoping for it to be working, and it was working, but it took 4 hours to get up to in the 60s from 40. And I like to run my house at 70. I know I'm old and I'm with this gentleman. I don't have that long to live, and if I want to spend more money, fine, you know. So, but anyway, and this, P.S., this is our second heat pump because the first one they couldn't get working. So that's anecdotally, I will tell you. But they were very gracious and they brought a second one out and put it in. They didn't charge us, you know.
You're way ahead of me.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So
my
that's
air conditioning is 40 years old.
Mine was 30.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it failed, and so we thought, why not? Because we got all these bonus. I mean, it cost us like $20,000 to do heat and air conditioning, which we paid that almost 30 years ago for this, you know, to do it. So with all these incentives, it was, amen. Anyway, so that was.
Bob, do you want to talk about the heat?
So we did it, and I'm happy with it, but I was hoping to find a sweet spot. Is 30 the wrong setting, perhaps? Should we go up to 40 or 50 to have it run? You know, I don't want to wait 4 hours in a cold winter, you know.
Yeah, there's really a couple points in your question I'd like to address. First of all, we have to understand that when you're burning fossil fuels, it's really easy to generate a boatload of heat really fast.
Okay.
And frankly, it's also not very cost sensitive. If you put in a furnace that's 100,000 BTUs per hour firing rate, one that could put out 200,000 BTUs per hour firing rate, costs just a little bit more. They might almost look the same, you know, almost the same components. Heat pumps, not quite the same relationship. It costs more money to put out more capacity. So as a practical matter, you have to size them more carefully.
That's what I'm wondering.
And
did they size us? They didn't give us a big enough one, maybe? Do you suppose?
Nothing you've said suggests that.
Okay.
Okay, just to reassure you. I don't know the answer to your question, but nothing you've said suggests that. What's important to understand, because the heat pump is sized much more closely to the heating requirement of your home, to go from a very low temperature in your home, if you like, don't turn on the thermostat and it's 60 degrees inside your home and you want it to be 70 in 1 hour, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
Unless you turn on your furnace to make that come up to faster. So the general advice, and I say general, with a heat pump, just set the thermostat at the temperature you want and leave it there. Don't play around with it, don't
yeah,
shut it
no,
off,
that's what
don't
we've
turn
done
it
now.
down at night.
Now that it's on, we
Yeah.
just
Just
let
put
it
it
be.
on, and
Yeah.
that way it doesn't
Yeah.
have to fight to climb up. And it takes a huge amount of energy to warm a home up from a low temperature.
So it was probably just the very first time that we turned it on, that it would be
It
that
probably
slow,
was.
maybe, you think?
Now, if you
Okay.
go away for a week in the winter to ski, for sure, turn your thermostat down. But understand, you can remotely, or you can just schedule it to come on before you get home, or remotely turn it back up.
Okay.
But if you wait until you get home and it's 50 degrees and
It's
you
gonna
want it at
take a while.
70, it's going to
Yeah.
take quite a few hours to build up unless you use your furnace. Now, another point I wanted to address, what temperature should you switch from your heat pump to your backup furnace?
Well, this was set, but I don't know if they set it
So make sure,
arbitrarily
first of
or
all,
if
make
that
sure
was-
you know how to adjust that. And if you don't know how to adjust that temperature switch, talk to your installer and say, hey, I need to know how to do this myself.
Okay,
Now, where do you set it? The way I would do it is experiment a little bit.
okay.
Leave it where it is for a while, and if everything works well, turn it down further. Use the heat pump as much as you can. If it's set at 32 now, and it works, try it at 25. If it works at 25, try it at 20.
Okay.
Keep going until you get to the point where the heat pump can't keep up with the heat that it's not satisfying the
Okay, so you
thermostat.
leave it set. at
Pick
a-
the lowest
okay.
temperature at which it keeps your thermostat satisfied.
Okay,
And you may have to experiment a bit with it.
yeah,
And, I have no idea how your installer sized your heat pump, and whether it was sized to heat the whole home or
was
not do
supposed,
all the
yeah,
work. But,
it's
supposed to be
4
sized
tons, 4 tons or something.
well, that's only part of it. We don't
Yeah,
know
I don't know.
a lot
about that,
of
yeah.
other details. But did you ask your installer to size it to provide all of your heating needs?
Yeah. So it's probably
So in
just
theory-
the first run up is maybe the.
In theory, you can set it much lower.
Okay.
What fuel do you use?
We were gas to
You were-
start with.
you-
and
You still are, right? For the
and,
furnace.
well, yeah, in an emergency, I think they called it emergency. If in an emergency, it'll go to
Okay.
gas or something, they said.
Well, some
I
business-
clearly didn't
yeah.
ask enough questions about
Well,
it
if
before
I
we
was
did it.
just, from how you're talking, I was assuming you had an integrated thermostat that automatically switches over to gas, but that may not be the case.
No,
I'm
we
sorry, I
have to,
misunderstood.
I thought, that, we have to tell it to go to gas. Well, I guess it will go to gas if it gets below 30 outside. But if we are cold and we want it to go faster, I guess we can manually switch it to gas.
Okay, well, it sounds like you do have an integrated thermostat,
Okay.
based on what you just said, so.
And
Yeah,
just to be clear, so some heat pumps will not heat down to 10, 5 degrees, negative 15 degrees, but many will.
Then what do you do?
So like
Well,
I,
that's your
I,
furnace.
I have no backup heat in my home, and I'm all electric, and it works great. 5 degrees out, and I have a nice toasty 70.
It
Yeah.
will be okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And Mass Save has, over time, tightened up the requirements for the efficiency of their heat pumps. And
Okay.
basically what you have to install now is a cold climate heat pump, which are specifically designed to work at those cold temperatures,
Okay.
both in terms of output and in terms of efficiency.
Yeah, I didn't ask enough questions to start.
So have a consult either through Mass Save
Exactly,
or
they'll
through,
explain it to me
and
now.
then we can help you understand what's going on.
So I've had a mini split system for 9 years, and I love it. It's great. I have great air. I partially heat the whole house. It's a deck house, so it has some weatherization issues that are
Challenges,
inherent to the deck house. But I will say I've had 3 different repairs situations, all caused by mice in the condenser.
Yeah.
And they were, the first 2 times were just sort of expensive and a pain. This last time I had to really replace the external condenser. I mean, I still swear by the system, but it was really sad and big nests of mice. And I had to go through 4 different calls in to Sila and all these people who wouldn't come out and do it, and hated to see the mouse nest. But they finally told me that this is just the problem of me living in Carlisle and having this system. And the only thing that they did with putting the new condenser in is to take it off the table, and it's now like sticking out from my garage, so there's no legs down to the ground.
That should help.
I still think they're gonna get in.
Yeah, I know it's-
But I will say, at this time, so I was 9 years out from the system,
Mhm.
they said that this year there's a new refrigerant requirement, and they were trying to get me to completely
Yeah.
buy a whole new system. But I was a little concerned about what are sort of the health issues, if any, related to this new refrigerant.
Okay, yeah, I breezed over that piece of it. The EPA put through regulations to switch over to lower greenhouse gas emission refrigerants. Now, just to be clear, the refrigerant that's used in the heat pump is a global warming gas. But as long as it stays in your heat pump, the same is true with air conditioners, it's the same situation. That refrigerant doesn't harm the atmosphere at all, it's only if it leaks out. Most of the refrigerant leakage in general is a potent carbon pollution gas, but the vast majority of that refrigerant leakage is from commercial and industrial applications. It's not residential units like we all have. But still, the regulations that the EPA put in place apply to residential equipment. So they lowered the threshold of the global warming potential associated with that refrigerant, which led to, in fact, December 31st of this year is the last date that an installer can put in the current R410A refrigerant in a new split system, air conditioner or heat pump in a home. And if you happen to find an installer who has some equipment they're trying to get rid of that's got the 410A and they give you a great price, I would not hesitate to put it in myself. Because again, as long as they do a good job on it, seal up, do their joints correctly, and it doesn't leak out, it's not going to hurt the atmosphere. That would be my decision. Other people may reach a different decision. The 2 new refrigerants that are out, that are replacing the 410A, are not as different from 410A as you might think. 410A has 50% R32. Sorry for all the alphabet soup here, number soup, but it's 50% R32. Manufacturers have gone to a refrigerant that's either 100% R32 or 70% R32. What the 410A has in it, the other 50%, is basically a flame retardant. Okay, and it was added not to make it perform better, but to make sure the refrigerant is not flammable. So the new refrigerants, the 2 new refrigerants, are what they call mildly flammable. So technically, they could burn. If you were to light them with a match, they would not burn. You would need a blowtorch to get these things to burn. They're not flammable anywhere near the way natural gas or fuel oil or propane are flammable. So from a safety perspective, I would still be 100% comfortable with the new refrigerants. They also have leak detection systems built into the new equipment. The new refrigerants tend to be slightly more efficient, so you should get a little bit better performance out of them. But honestly, in the end, from a customer perspective, I doubt you're going to see much difference. You really aren't. And the current 410A, don't worry, if you're using a heat pump with a 410A refrigerant, that's going to be available for quite a long period of time for service and repair. It might eventually, in 10 or 15 years, get a bit more expensive, but it's not going away. It's just for new installations. So I honestly think the environmental differences are minuscule.
Can I ask a mouse-related question?
Love
Yeah,
those questions.
our place is impossible to mouse-proof. It's fieldstone foundation from 1685.
Yes, it's in
And another
home, but
building
yeah.
that's building frame, yeah, it's not possible. So I use peppermint oil. I spray peppermint oil in my tractor engine block all over it. And
Yeah.
that keeps them out. Otherwise, they nibble on the fuel lines, which have got a soy product on the outside of it.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to replace fuel lines. It's a pain in the neck. So, is there any reason you couldn't spray peppermint oil on your heat pump around it to keep the mice from?
What a great question. I
I mean, it's
would be
stinky.
hesitant. I would be hesitant to spray an oil product right on the coil
Yeah.
itself
Mhm.
because it might interfere with its performance a little bit, whatever. You want to keep that coil fairly clean. It should be cleaned periodically, but around it,
I think the wiring is, the electrical components are where the mice are at.
They tend to like that. But was your
Yeah.
damage just from nesting, or were they eating the wiring?
Both.
Both. Yeah.
But I had mothballs, I had dryer sheets, I
You
had all
tried all that,
kinds
and
of
it
stuff.
still ate you.
Yeah, and you know, it's hard to see actually where they're going in.
Yeah.
And only one, and then at some point they said there was so much of the nest, they were worried to do more diagnostics. It would just cost me more money to keep figuring it out. So I just had to replace the whole thing.
Maybe you build a cage and some plastic they don't want to eat, like turf reinforcement mat stuff, which rodents won't chew through because it damages their enamel. And maybe you embalm it in something like that, which is open and airy, that'll take their teeth out. I don't know. Okay.
Just a quick question around that. So I've had a lot of problems with mice. I actually lost a car to mice damage. And from what I've seen, the air source heat pumps are the ones that are outside and the ground source are in your cellar.
They're in the ground.
right,
They're in
and
the
well,
ground.
there's the piping that extracts the heat is all buried underground, and the heat
Right.
pump itself is all inside your home.
Inside your home, I think that would be a better mouse-proof.
Absolutely.
Depends on your house.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
house in my house, not so much.
That might
But
be better.
one of the things that mice like about these outdoor units, and we've had a heat pump since 2012, still running strong. I did remove a mouse nest that was right on top of the compressor, inside the insulation. Hadn't done any damage yet, but, you know, I had opened it up and I said, interesting. So that's warm, they like warm. If the mouse is already inside your home, it's already warm. It doesn't need to dig into your heat pump.
Yeah.
You're all set, just let them in.
Good point, yeah.
The pipes that go underground, they go below, like if I had to, would I have to drill into my basement floor? Or how do they get buried?
Well, they usually come in through the basement wall. They drill a couple holes in the basement wall. And these
Okay.
are basically water lines with an antifreeze in
I
them.
see, okay.
Yeah, and they go down hundreds of feet and these boreholes and come back up. And that ground system will last 50 years.
We'll do some investigation, but approximately like what percentage costs above an air source would you say they run? Just in your experience?
Excited to hear your answer.
I don't know.
At
Well,
least twice as much
at least
before the
twice as much.
incentives, and maybe even 3 times as much depending.
Wow.
I
But when
think
you,
that's
when you
significant.
look at the, well, again, with this tax credit going away, that 30% tax credit was
Yeah.
huge. Not to scare anyone off, but at least here in Carlisle, I've not seen a complete ground source heat pump installed that heats the entire home
Yeah,
for less than $100,000
Wow.
total.
wow.
But then take off the 30% tax credit, take off the 15K incentive,
Hmm.
look at the heat loan and then you bring it much, much lower.
Yeah.
Air source heat pumps, I'm gonna get myself in trouble for throwing out numbers, but again, here in Carlisle with their enormous homes and whatnot, complicated systems, you know, people rarely get away with less than 25,000, and often they're 50 or 60,000 for air source if you're doing the whole home.
Mhm.
That's before incentives.
Okay.
So there's still a pretty big gap.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't, honestly, when you look at the data from Mass Save statewide, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but the number of rebates for the ground source heat pump is tiny,
Very small.
tiny compared to the number of rebates for air source. On the other hand, the rebates for the heat pump water heaters are tiny too, but I've never been able to figure out why that is. I think people just don't know about them.
Mm.
They're not, they are more expensive than a conventional water heater, but we're talking maybe 6,000 total, and you can get some money off of that.
There should be less on the heat pump water heater marketplace as well. That should be the.
Yeah.
the
We're gonna find out, you know, hopefully there'll be a lot. When we put in our heat pump water heater in 2014, it was $2,000. And it was this, I think it was a $750 incentive now, and it would have cost $1,000 for a conventional water heater.
Mm.
It was a slam dunk.
Right, sure.
Those are the golden days.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm throwing out numbers,
Yeah,
everyone's
just-
home is different.
My real world example, so I paid 40 for my air source heat pumps, and I got quotes from 80 to 160 for ground source.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's significant, yeah.
Can I get clarification on the rebates? So when we called for his job, because it's a renovation addition, we weren't able to go through the regular Mass Save, we had to go over to a different side. And when we spoke to them on the phone, they said that the installer for the equipment needed to be an authorized installer with Mass Save, that I couldn't use anybody. Is that a true fact, that you just can't hire any heating company, you have to go with one that's on their list?
Yeah, there are 1,800 on the list. So you'd be hard pressed to find a reputable heat pump installer that's not on the heat pump installer network list.
They have to be, just to do business in this state, they would, I don't know how an installer would last without being approved by Mass Save.
It's also very easy to get on the list. So they can go to the Mass Save website and click on the how to participate in the heat pump installer network list. And they basically submit their refrigerant license, proof of insurance, HIC number, and they're on.
Okay. Because we were told that the person that's under his contract for his house is not on the list, but can get on it, he said. So it's not a big hurdle then. It's not like having to take a 2-week course with them.
It's not.
Okay.
How far can the line be between the outside unit and the inside piece of an air source whole house heat pump?
Oh, good question. You know, I don't honestly know the upper limits. Quite often, line sets are routinely like 25 feet, but they can put them in much longer, probably 50 or 75 feet, I'm guessing.
So 15,
The
20
installer, but the installer has to figure that out, and it could affect the equipment they select, because there will be a slight penalty in the efficiency and capacity of the heat pump if the line sets are very long. But it
feet.
shouldn't.
20 feet isn't a problem.
Oh gosh, no.
I think 88 is the max that I've seen, but every system is different. But my lines are in the 40 to 60 feet.
Oh, that's fine.
Anything online?
Are they online?
Quiet online.
Okay.
One last closing statement. We talked about flammability, and so I have an all-electric house, and I have 3 young kids, and it's just great peace of mind to have no carbon monoxide threat, have no risk of explosion, which is minimal, but did happen in 2018 in North Andover, Lawrence area. And it's just a healthier, we have an induction stove. There's all kinds of evidence that the indoor air quality from an all-electric home, particularly an induction stove, and there's no flame in the house. So there's nothing to put off any off-gassing, nothing to catch anything on fire. My 2-year-old goes up and plays with the knobs all the time, even though we ask her not to. And there's no threat that she can do anything with an induction stove. And so it's just nice peace of mind for brain development and safety of the home from a sort of logical standpoint.
Last call from those online on Zoom. Don't see any hands coming up.
Great.
Thank you all.
Thank everyone. Thank
Appreciate you guys coming.
online.
And good questions. And again, I want to note that Homeworks isn't back. If anybody's interested in signing up for a home energy assessment, you have an opportunity here.